Welcome back to Discovery 392. This is another motovlog series, episode 22. And in this video, I'm just going for a nice cruise around Denver. I ended up going to the Rev'it store first, and somebody there recommended that I go take a ride through the Rocky Mountain National Wildlife Refuge area. So as I'm passing this 18-wheeler, that's where I'm heading. I should be there pretty shortly here. And so I'm riding the FJ-09, and I should be there pretty soon, I think within a couple miles. This was on a weekend, so not a whole lot of traffic, and it was just a really nice day. As you can tell, there's clear skies, the sun was out, so it was a little warm. So I think, if I remember right, the temperatures were up in the upper 70s and low 80s. And I was wearing my Rev'it trench jacket without the inside liner, but it was still a tad warm for me. Probably because it was a little chilly when I first started riding in the morning. But if you've never been to the National Wildlife Refuge, it's pretty neat. It's free to get into. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to drive around the whole thing. If you just blow on through. But again, weekend, not a lot of traffic here just because this is located out in the northeast side of Denver. So not a huge attraction area, but it was really nice to just be out in open space with the clear skies and go for a ride on the FJ. So yeah. Alright, as I'm getting closer to the wildlife refuge area, you can see it up ahead on the right side there. That's the stadium for the Colorado Rapids MLS team. If you haven't been there, those soccer games are actually a lot of fun. I've been to a handful in the past, and they've always been fun. Oh yeah, this is a part where I think I missed a turn, so just popped a UE real quick. And if you haven't done the slow speed maneuvers stuff from Dan the Fireman, this is why I'm able to do a decent U-turn. Still need some work, but getting better at it. And yeah, this is the turn that I needed to get into the wildlife refuge area. Again, it's free to get in. You just drive through, and you just kind of hang out, take your time, and enjoy the wildlife that may or may not pop out. But in this ride today, I actually ended up seeing some wildlife, so stay tuned later on in the video to see what I saw. Okay, now we're entering the entrance, Rocky Mountain Arsenal Wildlife Refuge area. Again, it's free to get into, and up ahead is the visitor center, and just kind of cruising along, enjoying the day, getting some two-wheel therapy in, and it was really nice just to be out on the bike. I thought it was kind of crazy that as you're driving through the wildlife area, there's just subdivisions on the right-hand side there, and I don't know, I just thought it was kind of strange. You have this massive wildlife area, and then there's a neighborhood right next to it on the outskirts of the fence there. But like I said, I visited the Rev'it store. It's a good place to hang out, look at some gear, try on some gear. All my stuff is from Rev'it, and I like the quality of their products and all their gear. So that's my call out to Rev'it. So thank you, Rev'it, for all the cool gear that I paid for. Huh. Watch out for those cattle guards. The wildlife refuge area isn't really that difficult to navigate. It was confusing on Google Maps, like where to go, but as you can see here, there's only one road, mainly one road, one main road, to go around the entire park. So I guess I ended up just following that in a big giant circle, uh, and really didn't really use Google Maps. I was trying to use Google Maps in the beginning and realized that like some of the roads are part of the park or the wildlife area, so that was not useful. But I just downloaded the Riser app by Cardo Systems, and I'm going to try to use that and record my rides on that app. I also use Gaia Maps for trails and hiking and campsites. Um, so you can also record on that application as well. I like Gaia because it works most of the time in low signal areas. So you know how your phone says SOS and there's no signal? Gaia Maps will still record and still populate the map. So it's really good for low signal areas to not get lost and kind of navigate. And it shows you, you know, your speed, your altitude or elevation, and you know, other data like altitude climbs, and like average speed, things of that sort. So Gaia Maps is a really cool application to record like off-grid or low signal terrain or areas. But I just, like I said, I just downloaded the Riser app. I'm going to try to use that next time I go out. This is post the next video, so I'm kind of a video behind. I did this maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, as far as getting this footage. So I did another massive trip, so stay tuned for that video. I'll try to work on that in the next week or so. But as you can see here, a random Tesla just parked on this side of the road. I didn't see any people around for a while, so I don't know where that person went. Probably went for a walk on the trail there. But I stopped here to kind of take a break, grab a snack, and kind of just hydrate myself because it was a tad warm, like I said. But yeah, fun day to be out. Off in the distance, you can see the mountains. There's snow on the top. Those are the Rocky Mountains. For those of you who are not geographically savvy. But yeah, you can see it just there. I had my vents open on the trench jacket, kind of just taking a break. Not sure what I was doing here. Probably grabbed my hat, or oh, I did have the liner on. That's why it was so hot. So I was taking the liner out. Huh. So I was taking the liner out because it was pretty warm. I was breaking a sweat. But yeah, so I just pulled over to take the liner out apparently, and probably to grab a drink and hydrate and kind of take a quick break. Alright, after my break I got back on the road, and people were very nice that day. They just let me kind of pass if they saw me coming. This van, I think they were just kind of hanging out, so but I was able to pass them. And I also let other cars pass too, because I had some cars behind me that were kind of like on my tail as I'm cruising through this 20-mile, 25-mile-an-hour zone. Yeah, like that Explorer there. But it was kind of weird. I've never been here before, so this was a first for me. But it was kind of nice to be out, look at all the trees, and then the views from that spot that I took a break from. You can just see all the mountains, all the entire mountain range from, 50 miles out from the foothills. So that was really cool to see in a panoramic view. And I did take some photos. I'll probably insert them in the video here. But yeah, you can tell lens flare. The sun was out. I think it felt a lot better taking out that liner. Just get some more air circulation through the jacket with the vents open. But it was really nice. Just cruising along. I thought it was interesting, like in one area, like how much the landscape kind of changed because there were a ton of trees in this section, and then there were parts where it was just kind of like a prairie. And I did see a bunch of prairie dogs, like hundreds and hundreds of prairie dogs, just kind of running around. But it's just flat and open. Again, this is northeast Denver, so it's pretty prairie-like or plains-like as far as landscape goes. And yeah, so it was kind of neat to experience that on the bike, and just go through those you know, landscape changes or what have you. I think there was some deer that was back there. Okay, so out of the whole time I've been in this park, I saw like maybe 3 cars, and then I get here and realize this is where all the cars are. And fun thing about being on a bike, I was able to split or filter in between, because everyone was kind of just all over the place. So I just felt like scooting up to the front, see what's going on. And look at that. Look at all these bison. They're all over the place. So I like pulled over in the dirt here just to kind of stop, take a look, turn off the bike, and they're just grazing. But there's a bunch of them. But figured I got, you know, I knew I had the camera rolling, so I got the footage that I needed, and decided just to jet on out of there so I don't get stuck behind all these cars on the main road. But yeah, they're like crossing the road, and we got really close to them. That was really cool. But yeah, there's probably a couple hundred just in this spot here. I was kind of eyeballing this one. Yeah, he ended up scooting off, but I was worried that he was gonna like charge at me on my bike. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.